Welcome to Quadrants and Trigonometric Graphs. So firstly we're going to have a look at the quadrants. So when we look at our reflected acute angles, we measure each angle based on the angle it makes with the x-axis. So 35 degrees is in that first quadrant, and it's 35 degrees with the x-axis. 145 degrees makes 35 degrees with the x-axis. 215 degrees makes 35 degrees with the x-axis, and 325 also makes 35 degrees. And these will become important when we look at our trig functions. So as mentioned, we have our quadrants. They move anti-clockwise. So our first quadrant, both x and y are positive. In our second quadrant, we have negative x values with positive y's. Third quadrant, both are negative values for x and y, and in our fourth quadrant we have positive x values for negative y values. In one of the recent videos on trigonometric functions, we spoke about sine, cos and tan and their respective x and y values that go with them. And cosec, sec and cot as the reciprocals also have the same signs. So in that video, we said that sine was equal to the value of the y value in a unit circle. So you can see that matches, that in the first quadrant, the y is positive, so is sine. In the second quadrant, the y is positive, sine is as well. And in the third and fourth, the y values are negative, and so is the sine. Cos matches the x value. So the x value in the first quadrant is positive, in the second it's negative. And cos matches those, and in the third negative, and in the fourth it's positive. And tan is sine over cos, so tan is in the first quadrant, positive divided by a positive gives you a positive, whereas in the second quadrant it's a positive divided by a negative, which gets you a negative. Third quadrant, a negative divided by a negative gives you a positive, and the fourth quadrant, negative divided by positive gives you a negative. And you can see that cosec is the exact same as sine, sec as cos, and cot as tan. So putting all those together, this gives us our ASTC, so all stations to Crookwell. So this just represents what we've just done in a table, but we're making it a bit easier. So in the A quadrant, everything's positive. In the S quadrant, sine and its reciprocal, cosec, are positive. In the T quadrant, tan and its reciprocal, cot, are positive. And in the C quadrant, cos and its reciprocal, sec, are positive. So now let's put this in place. Let's find the exact value of sine 330, cos minus 150, and tan 600. So sine 330, if we look at this in regards to our quadrants, so 330 degrees is almost a 360, it's 30 degrees off. So it's in the fourth quadrant. The related angle, remember, with the x-axis is 30 degrees. And since sine is negative, then sine 330 is the same as minus sine 30. And sine of 30 as an exact is a half, so we get minus a half for sine 330. Cos of minus 150. So cos of minus 150 goes in the clockwise direction, but it's also 210 degrees from the clockwise direction. That's in the third quadrant, cos is negative, and the related angle in that quadrant is 30 degrees. So cos of minus 150 is minus cos of 30, which is minus surd 3 on 2. Tan of 600. So 600 is obviously more than 360. So we just work out how much more than 360 600 is, which is 240. That puts it in the third quadrant, where tan is positive. The related angle in that third quadrant is 60 degrees. So tan of 600 is the same as tan of 60, which is surd 3. So finally, we're going to have a look at the 6 type of graphs. Firstly, sine, cos and tan, and then we'll have a look at the reciprocal graphs. So the sine curve starts at 0, 0. It goes up to 1 at 90, back down to 0 at 180, down to negative 1 at 270, and back up to 360. At 360 goes back up to 0. And this just continues, whether it be in the negative direction or beyond 360. The cos graph, at 0 it starts at 1, and then goes down to negative 1 at minus 180, and back up to 1, at 360. And the tan graph, so because it's sine divided by cos, where cos is 0 at 90 and 270 and minus 90, we have asymptotes. And so the sine divided by cos or tan graph looks like almost a cubic, and it passes through at 0, 180, 360, etc. When we look at the cosec graph, so it's the reciprocal of sine. So where sine is 0, and in this case I've used, for this graph, 360 is represented by 2 pi or 6.2, and pi is 3.1. So you can see there's asymptotes at 180 degrees or 3.1 or pi. And that's the blue. In the blue is the cosec graph. The sec graph is the reciprocal of cos. So where cos is equal to 0, we end up with asymptotes. So at 90 degrees, pi on 2. At 270, 3 pi on 2. At minus 90, etc. And then our cot graph is just the reciprocal of tan. So where tan was 0, they are now asymptotes, and where tan used to be asymptotes, they now are zeros. So that's because it's cos over sine. So where sine was 0, you have your asymptotes, and where cos is 0, you have your zeros. Thank you.